Maar liefst 60 albums en 120 singles bracht hij uit. En hoeveel daarvan in de top 10 zijn beland, ik weet het niet meer. Het zijn er misschien 40 of misschien wel 60. En zelf is hij de teller lang kwijt. Al meer dan 40 jaar staat hij aan de top. En weet je wat nou zo gek is? Hij ziet er nog bijna precies zo uit als aan het begin van zijn carrière. Heel een beetje ouder geworden. Dames en heren, I proudly present onze guest of honor, Sir Cliff Richard. Hello. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here. Sit down.
Thank you very much.
Before we start our conversation, I have a very special thing for you. Look at the monitor.
Okay.
That's you and that's me. 35 years ago, yes.
Where was it?
I don't know. I can't remember. I think the Kurhaus in Scheveningen on a very special night.
Fantastic. Well, we've only changed a little bit.
Yes, young and handsome, just the handsome. Do you remember? No, not at all.
No, I don't really. There's so many times when you see photographs like that and you can't figure out what happened in your life.
But I remember, of
Do
course.
you? Oh.
Yes, of course. It was a great thing for me that time.
Did you interview me?
I think so. I don't know. After all these years, you're coming with a brand new album, Real As I Wanna Be. You're more than 40 years now in the business, and they say it's a very unreal world, the show business. Not to me, not to you. But how real is Cliff Richard?
Well, again, the title song of the album says it all, really. None of us really tell everything about ourselves, but we choose the moments to present ourselves in the best way we want to be presented. So I'm as real as I wish to be. I've been talking to journalists for 40 years, and I've been saying to many of them, don't expect me to give you all the answers, because none of us tell everything about ourselves, do we? No. Ever. So I'm pretty real. I mean, I live a fairly normal life. I've tried to not allow showbiz to control me. All my closest...
Possible?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what you need to do is have a lot of friends who are not in show business. Then you get another aspect of life from different people, and it keeps you in touch with reality. So in that respect, I've been very lucky, because I have a lot of friends, and almost none of my close friends are actually in show business at all. They're professors or teachers, or they work for charitable organizations.
Talking about something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, really. We need to know that there's another world outside our world.
You started your life in 1940, you're 58 now, in India. Your parents were both British, and they talked all the time about the motherland, England. How about those first years in India?
Well, I mean,
What do you remember?
I remember quite a bit, but I was only a small boy. I had my 8th birthday when we arrived back in England. But I can remember things like flying kites. They had a very special kind of kite that flew in very little wind.
Yeah.
And it was very maneuverable. You could turn it and dive it, and used to have fights. And with the kites, I mean. You could fight with the kite. There was also when Home Rule came. As a child, I was so excited because I thought it was like cowboys and Indians. I could hear gunshots at the bottom of our road. Of course, I realize now that my mother and father were very afraid for all of us, because there was a lot of gunfight, you know, down the bottom of our road. But I just, as a child, thought, hey, this is cowboys and Indians. I'm living in... Because that's all I remember. I've seen black and white westerns of cowboys shooting each other. So all those kind of memories are still with me.
And you lived a rich life over there, with a lot of servants?
Not rich, but we didn't have to pay for anything.
Wow.
My father worked for a company, a railway. In the railway, he had the concession for catering, you know, for restaurants on the railway. So he would travel around all the time, and his company paid for our home, paid for our food, paid for all the people that worked for us. The only problem was that when we decided to leave India, because my father...
After the independence?
Because he never had any money of his own, he didn't buy anything, and so therefore we didn't own anything. And the only way he could buy the tickets to get us home was by selling the few things that he had. And when we arrived in England, we had £5 sterling.
That's all?
Yeah.
So how was life back in England after the independence of India?
Well, it was...
New neighborhood, new friends, new enemies, perhaps,
yes, but
new school?
I was reunited with a family who had already left India. And if it wasn't for my grandmother and also an auntie of mine, I don't know what we would have done, because England was still having problems of its own. Not so long after the war, there was still rationing. So that every week, you know, you had ration book for sweets and sugar, and certain things, butter and margarine and things like that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a very easy time, although as a child, of course, it's only now I look back and I think, yes, I know that must have been difficult. But as a child, it was just a new adventure for me.
Did the pupils in school accept you?
Not at first, no. I must have had, well, I must have had a very dark color. And
because of the suntanned.
Yeah, I mean, I'd spent the whole of my life till that point playing out in the Indian sun, and I must have been pretty swarthy. And even now, when I sunbathe, I get quite a good color. Yeah. But at the time, of course, when the other children found I'd come from India, they would call me strange names, and they made the mistake of thinking I was a red Indian, because they used to say things like, "Go home to your teepee."
To the wigwam.
Yeah, the wigwam. Yeah. So I thought, my father said to me, "Well, they're stupid people. Ignore them."
You became very successful on your 18th with een hit die we allemaal nog kennen, Move It. You were 18 years old at the time.
Not quite. I was
17.
I was just. I made the record while I was still 17, and I did television while I was still 17, and I did my first tour in 1958, and in October, and I became 18 on that tour. So I was younger than 18 when I made Move It.
Your father died in '61.
Yeah.
What kind of influence had that on your life?
Well, it was strange because my father and I was closer to my mother at first.
Yeah.
And my father was a very dominant man. And so we didn't get on so well as far as I can remember. But when he became ill, we became really close.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because he became more dependent upon me. I had started to make money, so I was the man who was bringing the money into the home. He was very sick, and so therefore I had to do all the work around the house, making the screws, changing the plugs, and doing things for my mother. And we became very close. So when my father died, it really hurt me, because when I think back now, he missed all the best parts of my career.
Yeah.
And he was a very big supporter of mine. So I really wish that he had lived longer.
You became a convinced Christian after the death of your father.
Yeah, well, my father's death, of course, didn't have a direct part to play, but indirectly it did, because, you know, 2 or 3 years later, I was thinking about life and thinking, why am I not really, really hysterically happy? I had everything I wanted: money, fame. I wanted to be like Elvis, and there I was having a career. Girls were screaming at me. And so I began to ask questions, and the more you ask questions, the more you realize that you have to find some answers about God. Either he is there, or he's not there. If he's not there, you can get on with life and try and find something else. But the more I asked questions, the more convinced I became that there has to be a God. My brain is not so strong, my faith is not so strong, that I can be an atheist. For an atheist, I think you have to have a lot of fantastic faith. I have just enough faith to be a Christian. And it sees me through my life, and I only have to look at a tree, and I think, yeah, there has to be a God. So I became a Christian in 1965, and it changed my life around.
And you still are. Back to the new album. How did you choose the songs? Where did you find the inspiration?
Well, this time was slightly different. Normally, you know, in a way, the producer and I would be the main men to decide what songs. This time there were 4 of us.
But it's a reflection of your life, of course.
Well, the album?
Yeah,
well,
I think so.
They all are. Yeah. Because if you think about it, nearly every pop rock song is about, you know, various aspects of how we live our lives.
Yeah.
And so therefore, you know, my past albums also are a reflection. And I'm very lucky because I'm a singer-performer, and I like to sing other people's feelings. But what we did was, there were 4 of us, and what we did, we chose songs, and we were brutal. Even if I started recording some songs, and then more songs came, and they were better, then we threw out the ones from the past. Even if they are good songs, we didn't put them on the album. So I can look people in the eye now and say, well, I have an album, and there are 13 tracks, and 4 of us liked every single one of those tracks. So maybe someone else will like them too.
You made me very, very curious about your new work. May I invite you to go to the tiny little stage?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you for the conversation. Dames en heren, met gepaste trots, met heel veel trots en ook een beetje ontroering vanwege die 35 jaar dat we elkaar niet hebben gezien. Het is toch ook jeugdsentiment. Is hier met Can't Keep This Feeling In. Ik kan dat gevoel niet binnenhouden. Sir Cliff Richard.